We're going to turn in our Bibles to Genesis 37. We're going to read a fair bit of scripture this morning. It says, this is the account of Jacob and his family. When Joseph was 17 years old, he often tended his father's flocks. He worked for his half-brothers, the sons of his father's wives, Bilhah and Zilpah. But Joseph reported to his father some of the bad things his brothers were doing. Jacob loved Joseph more than any of his other children because Joseph had been born to him in his old age. So one day, Jacob had a special gift made for Joseph, a beautiful robe. But his brothers hated Joseph because their father loved him more than the rest of them, and they couldn't say a kind word to him. Verse 5, one night Joseph had a dream, and when he told his brothers about it, they hated him more than ever. Listen to this dream, he said. We were out in the field tying up bundles of grain, and suddenly my bundle stood up, and your bundles all gathered around and bowed low before mine. His brothers responded, so you think you'll be our king, do you? Do you actually think you will reign over us? And they hated him all the more because of his dreams and the way he talked about them. Soon, Joseph had another dream, and again he told his brothers about it. Listen, I've had another dream. And he said, the sun, the moon, and the 11 stars bowed low before him. This time he told the dream to his father as well as his brothers, but his father scolded him. What kind of dream is that, he asked. Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow to the ground before you? But while his brothers were jealous of Joseph, his fathers wondered what the dreams meant. Soon after this, Joseph's brothers went to pasture their father's flock at Shechem. And when they had been gone for some time, Jacob said to Joseph, your brothers are pasturing the sheep at Shechem. Get ready, and I will send you to them. I'm ready to go, he replied. Chapter 37, let's jump to verse 18. When Joseph's brothers saw him coming, they recognized him in the distance. As he approached, they made plans to kill him. Here comes the dreamer, they said. Come on, let's kill him and throw him into one of these cisterns. We can tell our father a wild animal has eaten him, and then we'll see what becomes of his dreams. Let's jump down to verse 23. So when Joseph arrived, his brothers ripped off the beautiful robe he was wearing. Then they grabbed him and they threw him into the cistern. Now the cistern was empty, there was no water in it. Then, just as they were sitting down to eat, they looked up and saw a caravan of camels in the distance coming towards them. It was a group of Ishmaelite traders taking a load of gum, balm, and aromatic resin from Gilead down to Egypt. Judah says to his brothers, what will we gain by killing our brother? We'd have to cover up the crime. Instead of hurting him, let's sell him to those Ishmaelite traders. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh and blood. And his brothers agreed. And so when the Ishmaelites, who were Midianite traders, came by, Joseph's brothers pulled him out of the cistern and sold him for 20 pieces of silver. And the traders took him to Egypt. You know, if I was writing a Bible for a religion, that would not be a story I'd put in. There's no heroes in this story, isn't it? There's no 10 steps to redemption in this story. Religion is about a set of rules that we do to try and please God. But Jesus teaches us, the gospel teaches us, that when we understand we're fully accepted and loved, then we'll begin to obey and discover who our God is. Religion wants you to find a way to try and make yourself right with God. This story, as we'll unpack it, tells the truth about our reality. None of us, not a soul, can make themselves right with God. We're all broken in some way. We're all got issues in some way. There's dysfunction and brokenness in every single human being because of sin that pervaded the world in the beginning. This is a story that reminds us of a number of different things and ultimately points to Jesus and his work on the cross. And we're going to see that. We're going to unpack that. I think so often in our lives, we forget the power of God in our situation and circumstance. Let's just look at this story and let's see the brokenness. Let's see the hiddenness of sin. You've got a family in the middle part of the world at that time that was one of the most influential families of the world. They had all that you'd ever hope to have. They had money, they had wealth in that sense, they had all good things going on. They had lots of sons and different aspects to their life and cattle and so on, but it was fully dysfunctional. The family was an absolute disaster. Then the woman that he loved finally has a son. And so what does Jacob do? Jacob loves that son and makes the rest of his family experience exactly what he experienced growing up. He loved them so much that it caused them to hate their brother. And in the middle of that, God comes along and puts a dream in Joseph's heart. Can you begin to see the dysfunction in his family? It looks the perfect family. They got wealth, they got power, they got good-looking kids, they got the whole thing all together, but buried beneath the surface is a dysfunction like Mount Vesuvius, ready to blow, ready to explode. And not only that, but in the not too distant future, there's a famine about to come into the land. And there's a famine that's going to wipe out this people. Not only them, but everybody else. And God sees a famine coming. God sees that there needs to be someone to raise up to save them from the situation that is looming ahead of them. God sees something going on. But this is a mess. You're like, God, wrong family. God, there must be another choice. Like, seriously, God, seriously, why would you choose these people? Isn't that what we often say? God, and then we turn it on ourselves sometimes. Well, God, you know I'm a mess, or you know this, you know. And God says, all I need is a willing heart. All I need is you to engage. All I need is, do you know what I also discovered? Is that I think God actually engages and God didn't create all the pride and the mess and the desire to murder and the hate that was going on. But God grabbed a hold of it all and overrode it all and overwhelmed it all with his presence, his power, and his love. Doesn't that give you great hope? That's what we're meant to be seeing in this story as we read this story. We'll see the moral of the story. God involves, God intervenes, God changes the whole thing, and he changes you and I. He takes us where we're at and turns things around and makes stuff work together for good in our lives.